My wife cheated with our neighbor during our divorce, then stole $200, $0 from our joint account and falsely claimed she was pregnant to drag out the custody battle. Now she's filing for sole ownership of our house worth $850, $0, and I don't know how to fight back. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be a lying, cheating bitch. But here I am, and what happened is straight out of a bad soap opera. The thing that still haunts me is how completely blindsided I was. I thought I knew Lisa better than anyone. We'd been married for 10 years, had a nice life, 2 kids, a house worth around $850, $0, and a joint bank account with a couple $100,000 in it. I was a construction manager. She was a stay-at-home mom for most of the marriage, but she always had these little side projects, some online boutique she was obsessed with. I figured she was just passionate about her little hobby, and I never paid much attention. But then, things started to change. It wasn't overnight, but I noticed her phone buzzing constantly at odd hours, her being more secretive about her social media, and her outright lying about where she was going or who she was talking to. At first, I thought she was just stressed, maybe overwhelmed with the kids or the house. But then I caught her in a lie about meeting a friend, and that's when I decided to dig a little deeper. I never thought I'd find what I found. It was a text message thread, hidden behind a password she refused to give me access to, with some guy named Jake. The messages weren't innocent. A lot of flirty talk, plans to meet up, and even talk about taking it to the next level. I remember the sick feeling in my stomach when I saw her texting him late at night, calling him babe, and saying she couldn't wait to see him. My hands were trembling and I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I loved and trusted, was sleeping with the neighbor. I'd seen him around, he's got a reputation, but I never thought Lisa would cheat on me with a guy like that. It was like a punch in the gut. I had to see more, so I started digging through her phone, her emails, her social media accounts. What I found was worse than I expected. She'd been seeing Jake for months, probably since before I even suspected anything. There were pictures of them together, secret dates, hotel receipts, and even a video of her and him doing. Well, I don't even want to go into detail. It was raw, explicit, and I had never felt so betrayed in my life. The worst part, she was lying to my face about everything. She told me she was working late, meeting friends, or going to the gym. Meanwhile, she was sneaking around with the neighbor, fucking him behind my back. And the thing that really set me off, she was also spending money like crazy, taking out cash, buying expensive clothes, and even withdrawing large sums from our joint account, which I later found out was over $200, $0 in total. I couldn't believe she was stealing from us too. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? I felt rage, heartbreak, disgust all at once. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't ready. I needed to plan my next move carefully because I had no idea how deep this rabbit hole went. The betrayal was one thing, but the financial damage was another. I had a family to think about, a house to protect, and my own dignity to salvage. I just kept thinking, how did I miss all these signs? How did I not see her slip away from us little by little? I remember sitting in my garage that night, phone in hand, trying to process everything. My mind was racing and I kept going over all the moments she was different, less interested, more secretive, more aggressive when I tried to talk about our relationship. It all clicked now. She'd been planning this probably for months, maybe longer. And the worst part, she's still trying to pretend like she's the victim. She's now claiming she's pregnant to drag out the custody battle. I mean, that's just the cherry on top of her lying cake. She's filing for sole ownership of the house, which is worth a ton, and I don't have a clue how to fight this legally or morally. All I know is I'm done being the fool in this story. I deserve better, and she's got a lot to answer for. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind kept replaying the images of her with Jake, the texts, the money, everything. I couldn't believe she'd gone this far, that she'd lie, cheat, steal from us, and then have the nerve to pretend she's the innocent victim. The worst part, I still loved her, or at least I thought I did. That love was shattered into pieces, and I was left sitting there trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. I started by talking to a lawyer. I knew I needed legal advice, especially about the house and the money. Lisa was already talking to her own lawyer, trying to spin her story. She was claiming she was pregnant, said she'd been confused, and that she wanted to save our marriage. Yeah, right, she was just trying to buy time. I could see that clear as day. The thing is, I had no idea how deep her lies went or how much she was willing to manipulate the system. I needed proof and I needed a plan. One of the first things I did was hire a private investigator. I figured if she was cheating, I might as well find out everything. Sure enough, he confirmed the affair with Jake. He also uncovered that Lisa had been withdrawing cash from our account, large sums, without my knowledge. I looked through the bank statements myself, and it was chilling. Over $200, $0 gone just like that. I couldn't believe she'd taken that much, especially knowing we had plans, a future, and kids to support. It felt like she drained our life savings for some cheap thrill with Jake. Meanwhile, I started noticing more signs of her trying to manipulate the situation. She'd been claiming she was pregnant, saying it was God's way of making everything right, and that she wanted to keep the house for the sake of the kids. She even staged a fake ultrasound, claiming it was hers, but I knew better. I had a friend who's a doctor, and I got her to verify the ultrasound was fake. I could feel my blood boiling. How low was she willing to go? The confrontation was inevitable. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. One night I sat her down. Lisa looked annoyed, like I was bothering her. I told her I knew everything, about Jake, about the money, about the pregnancy lie. Her face turned red and she started spinning her web of lies. She said she was confused, that she didn't mean to hurt me, that she was just trying to figure out her feelings. She denied the affair at first, then turned around and said it was just sex, that it didn't mean anything, that she needed to feel alive, she said. I wanted to punch her. How could she be so callous? Her reaction was pure bitchiness. She told me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I was controlling. She kept insisting she was the victim, that I'd never given her enough attention, that I'd been busy with work, that I didn't understand her. She cried fake tears, said she was sorry, but I saw right through her. She was just trying to manipulate me into feeling guilty so I wouldn't press charges or go after the house or the money. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I realized she was a master at lying, at twisting the truth, and that she'd been doing it for months. Honestly, the emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I was losing my mind. I trusted her with everything, my life, my money, my heart, and she'd betrayed me so completely. I was furious, devastated, and exhausted all at once. I spent nights lying awake, thinking about the moments I missed, the signs I ignored, the lies I believed. It felt like I'd been living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I'd spent years building what we had, and she'd been planning her escape behind my back all along. The feeling of betrayal was like a punch to the chest, and I knew I had to do something to protect myself and what was left of what we built. So I started gathering evidence, texts, bank statements, recordings of her calls with the lawyer, everything I could find. I didn't want to be blindsided again. I also contacted a forensic accountant to trace the stolen money and see if I could recover some of it. Meanwhile, Lisa kept trying to gaslight me, claiming I was crazy, that I was accusing her of things she didn't do, and that I was overreacting. She said she loved me, that she was just confused, but I knew better. I saw her true face, the bitchy, manipulative woman who'd lie to her own kids if it meant saving her own ass. Every day brought a new shock. I discovered she'd even been talking about leaving the country with Jake once she got her hands on the house. She wanted to sell the property, split the money, and disappear. That's when I knew I had to act fast. This wasn't just a messy divorce anymore. It was a fight for my life, my sanity, and my financial future. I had to prepare for a legal battle I wasn't ready for, but I was damn sure going to fight for what's mine. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything she'd stolen or manipulate her way out of this. The hardest part, knowing I'd loved her so much, and now I was planning to take her to court to fight for custody of our kids against her lies and manipulation. It's a sick feeling, seeing the woman I married turn into someone so cold and selfish. But I refuse to be the victim here. I'll do whatever it takes to stop her, to hold her accountable, and to make sure she doesn't get away with destroying what we built. This is just the beginning. The more I unraveled about Lisa's schemes, the angrier I got. It was like peeling an onion. Each layer revealed more lies, more deception, and a deeper sense of betrayal. I had to be careful. She was a master manipulator, and I knew she'd try to spin everything in her favor. Her lawyers were already planting seeds of doubt, claiming I was unstable and trying to ruin her reputation. But I had proof, screenshots, bank statements, witness statements from the pie, and even some recorded conversations that I planned to use in court. I wasn't going down without a fight. One of the most shocking discoveries came when I looked into the house papers. Lisa was claiming sole ownership, trying to kick me out and take everything. But I found out she'd forged some documents, and there's no way she can legally claim full ownership of the property without my signature. That was a huge relief, but it also made me realize she was willing to do anything, forge, lie, cheat, to get her way. I knew I had to act fast to protect my rights in the house. I also started consulting with a financial advisor to see if I could recover the stolen money. Turns out, some of it had been funneled into offshore accounts, making it harder to trace but not impossible. Meanwhile, Lisa kept pushing her narrative that she was pregnant, that she wanted to save the marriage, and that I was just being paranoid. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly every time she said that. She was so good at lying, so good at playing the victim. She even went as far as staging a fake ultrasound appointment, claiming it was her and Jake's baby. I got a friend who's a doctor to verify the ultrasound, and sure enough, it was fake. That was the final straw. I recorded her talking about the fake ultrasound, and I knew I had her dead to rights. Her behavior was getting more erratic. She started making wild accusations, claiming I was abusive and that I'd hit her or the kids. I knew she was trying to paint me as the bad guy to sway the court. That's when I decided to bring in a counselor to document her mental state. I wanted to protect myself and show that she was trying to sabotage me, that her accusations were lies. I also hired a private detective to follow her around, just to be sure she wasn't up to anything else. The last thing I needed was her trying to run away with the kids or hide assets. The custody battle was about to heat up, and I knew I had to be prepared. I wasn't just fighting for the house or the money, I was fighting for my kids' future. Lisa had already threatened to leave them with her sister if she didn't get her way, and I couldn't let that happen. I wanted full custody, or at least joint custody, with clear visitation rights. But I also knew Lisa's bitchiness and manipulativeness meant she'd pull every trick in the book. She'd lie, she'd cheat, she'd spin stories about how I was a terrible father. I had to be ready for her to throw everything she had at me. The legal process was exhausting. Every day brought new surprises, another lie from her lawyer, another piece of evidence she tried to hide or destroy. I was spending every waking moment gathering files, talking to my lawyer, and trying to stay one step ahead. I couldn't believe I was in this situation, but I also knew I couldn't back down. I had to stand my ground for myself and for the kids. The house, the money, those were just material things. The real battle was about integrity, trust, and making sure she couldn't get away with everything she'd done. Throughout all this, I kept asking myself how someone could turn into such a manipulative, selfish person. Lisa used to be sweet, charming even. But now, she was a completely different person, a vindictive, lying, money-hungry bitch. I guess I underestimated her. I thought we had a solid marriage, that she loved me. But she was just pretending all along, playing her part until she could cut her losses and run. The pain of that realization is still fresh, but I've accepted it. I can't change her. I can only protect myself and my kids from her poison. I've learned a lot from this nightmare. Trust is fragile, and sometimes people hide their true selves until it's too late. I've also learned that money can corrupt even the most seemingly stable relationships. And most importantly, I've realized that when someone shows you who they are, believe them. I'm still fighting this legal battle, and I don't know how it'll turn out. But I do know one thing: I'm not going down without a fight. I won't let her steal my life, my home, or my kids' future. No matter what happens, I'll stand tall and face whatever comes next. After months of chaos, I finally thought I had a grip on the situation. The legal battles, the evidence collection, the mounting financial loss, all of it was draining me. But I was determined to come out on top. I'd hired a top lawyer, someone with experience in high-stakes divorce and asset disputes. We prepared a comprehensive case, showing her falsified documents, the forged ultrasound, the evidence of her affair, and the missing money. I also had the private investigators' reports that confirmed her dealings with Jake, as well as her attempts to hide assets offshore. The court hearings were brutal. Lisa's legal team was aggressive, trying to discredit me at every turn. They painted me as an unstable, controlling husband who was just trying to ruin her life. But I had the facts: every screenshot, every bank statement, every recorded conversation. It was almost surreal sitting there, watching her lie in court, claiming she was the victim, that I was the one cheating and abusing her. I wanted to scream, but I kept my composure. I knew her game. I'd studied her manipulative tactics for months. One of the turning points was when my lawyer presented the forged ultrasound and the evidence of her affair. The judge looked unimpressed with her excuses, and I could see the cracks in her facade. She started to panic, trying to spin her lies even more desperately. But I had enough evidence to prove her intent to deceive the court and the court's concern about her financial dishonesty. The judge was clearly annoyed with her antics and ordered a forensic accounting of the stolen money. That was a huge win for me, and it meant more than just the money. It meant she was going to face serious consequences if she tried to cheat her way out. Meanwhile, I kept pushing for full custody of the kids. Lisa's behavior was erratic. She was still claiming she was pregnant, still trying to manipulate the situation. I had to show that she was unfit. She was lying about her health, staging fake ultrasounds, and even trying to turn the kids against me. I hired a child psychologist to evaluate her mental state, and her report confirmed what I already knew. Lisa was unstable, manipulative, and dangerous for the kids if she continued down this path. That was a huge breakthrough. It gave the court good reason to favor me, or at least keep the kids in a stable environment. Throughout all this, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief that I was finally fighting back, that I had proof and legal backing. Anger because I'd been blindsided for so long, because she'd lied, cheated, and stolen from us. The betrayal cut deep. I'd loved her, trusted her, and she'd used me like a pawn in her game. Every night I'd lie awake replaying everything, questioning how I missed all the signs. How did I not see the woman I loved turn into this manipulative, money-hungry monster? But I knew I couldn't dwell on that. I had to keep pushing forward. The house was another battleground. Lisa's lawyers filed a motion for sole ownership, claiming she was the primary breadwinner now because she'd taken care of the kids while I was neglectful. That was a blatant lie. I'd been working my ass off, providing for our family, and she was out scheming behind my back. I had evidence of her forging documents and trying to transfer ownership illegally. I also found out she'd been trying to sell the house secretly, planning to disappear with the proceeds. That's when I hired a forensic real estate expert to examine the property deeds and transactions. It turned out she'd been attempting to forge signatures to transfer the title to herself. The court got involved, and the judge issued an injunction preventing her from selling or transferring the house until the case was resolved. That was a huge relief. I knew I had to stay vigilant because Lisa was relentless. She kept trying to manipulate, lie, and spin her story. She even accused me of trying to ruin her reputation, which made me laugh bitterly. I had all the proof I needed to show she was the one lying and cheating. In the end, I realized this wasn't just about the house or the money. It was about standing up for myself and my kids. Lisa had shown her true colors, and I couldn't let her get away with it. I was tired, emotionally drained, but I refused to back down. I was going to fight for everything: my home, my kids, my dignity. The legal process was still ongoing, but I knew I was finally in a position of strength. I had the evidence, the law on my side, and a clear understanding of her manipulative tactics. Looking back now, I see how much this has changed me. I used to think love and trust meant everything. Now I know that sometimes people hide who they really are until it's too late. I learned that money can be a weapon and so can lies. But I also learned that if you're willing to fight, if you stay focused and gather the right support, you can come out of this mess stronger. I'll never forget what she did, but I also refuse to let her destroy me. I'm rebuilding my life step by step, and I won't let her win. The court's decision finally came after what felt like an eternity. I sat there, nervously clutching my hands, watching Lisa's expression shift from confident smirk to shock and then outright fury. The judge ruled in my favor on nearly every critical point, denying her claim of sole ownership of the house, ordering her to return the stolen money, and granting me full custody of the kids with supervised visitation rights for her. It was a huge win, but I knew this was just the beginning of the fallout. Lisa wasn't going down quietly, and I had to brace myself for what was next. She immediately launched into a tirade, screaming about how unfair everything was, how they're going to ruin her, and that she'd fight to the death to keep what she wanted. I could see her face twisting with rage, her bitchy side fully on display. She accused me of harassment, trying to ruin her reputation, and being a terrible father. All lies, of course. I had court-ordered evidence that she'd been lying about her health, manipulating the kids, and even trying to hide more assets. But her accusations weren't about truth. They were about trying to turn the court and everyone else against me. I felt a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. For the first time in months, I could breathe a little easier, knowing I'd fought hard and won some battles. But I also knew the war was far from over. Lisa's bitchiness and manipulativeness meant she'd do everything she could to hurt me, to take revenge, and to try to get her way. I had to stay vigilant. I'd hired security to monitor the house, just in case she tried to break in or destroy evidence. I also started setting up a new financial plan, closing the offshore accounts, freezing her access to our joint accounts, and consulting with my lawyer about filing for full restraining orders if she crossed any lines. One thing I learned from all this is that Lisa's true colors came out more and more as the case progressed. Behind her bitchy facade was a manipulative, vindictive woman who would stop at nothing to get her way. She tried to smear my name in court, claiming I was abusive and unfit, but I had the evidence to counter every lie. She even tried to turn our friends and family against me, spreading rumors about how I was a terrible husband and father. But I refused to let her manipulate everyone. My lawyer and I made sure the court saw through her lies. The kids, thankfully, are doing okay. They're young and confused, but I've been trying to keep things as normal as possible for them. I hired a child psychologist to work with them and help process everything. It's heartbreaking to see them caught in the middle of this mess, but I know I have to protect them from her bitchiness and manipulation. That's what keeps me going, knowing I'm fighting for their future, even if everything else feels like chaos. Looking back, I realize how much I've changed. I used to be naive, trusting Lisa completely. Now I see the world differently. People can hide their true selves behind a pretty face or a fake smile. Money can be used as a weapon, and lies can be spun into a web that's almost impossible to escape without legal help. I also learned that sometimes you have to fight dirty to protect what's yours. I never wanted to be that guy, but Lisa forced me into a corner. The most important lesson I've taken from this is that you can't control other people's actions, only your response to them. I could have fallen apart, given in to despair, or let her manipulate me into giving up everything. But I chose to fight back, to gather evidence, and to stand my ground. It's not easy, nothing about this is, but I know I did the right thing. I feel a strange sense of pride in that. I've lost a lot, but I've gained clarity. I know what I'm capable of, and I know that I won't let her destroy me or my family without a fight. Now I'm starting to rebuild. I've put my life back together piece by piece. The house is secure, the money is being recovered, and the kids are my focus. I've learned that betrayal runs deep, but so does resilience. And I know that no matter what comes next, I'll be okay. I've faced the worst and I'm still standing. That's what matters most. In the end, standing here today, I realize how much this entire nightmare has changed me. I used to think marriage meant trust, loyalty, and working through anything together. But Lisa's betrayal showed me that sometimes people are capable of hiding their true selves until it's too late. I learned that trust isn't given blindly, and that money, especially when misused, can corrupt even the most stable relationships. Most importantly, I learned that resilience and standing up for yourself are the only ways to survive when someone you love turns into your worst enemy. Getting through the legal battles was exhausting, both emotionally and physically. I watched her try every dirty trick in the book, lying, manipulating, staging fake ultrasounds, trying to turn everyone against me. But I also saw that truth has a way of surfacing. The evidence I gathered was undeniable, and the court saw through her lies. The judge's rulings finally gave me some peace of mind, securing the house for my kids and cutting her out of our financial life. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. The hardest part was watching her bitchiness come out in full force, especially when she realized she was losing. Her manipulative side was relentless. She accused me of all kinds of things that weren't true, tried to paint herself as the victim, and even threatened to destroy everything I cared about. But I stayed calm, collected, and focused on what mattered: my children's safety, my financial stability, and my integrity. I refused to let her control the narrative anymore. That's what kept me going when everything felt like it was falling apart. Now, I'm rebuilding my life. I've cut ties with her emotionally and financially, and I'm working on healing myself and creating a better future for my kids. I've learned that sometimes loving someone means knowing when to let go. I've also learned that standing up for yourself, no matter how hard it gets, is the key to reclaiming your life. I want anyone reading this who might be going through something similar to know: trust your instincts, gather evidence, and don't be afraid to fight for what's yours. People can hide their true nature for a long time, but eventually the truth comes out. Looking back, I see the lessons I've learned and the strength I never knew I had. Betrayal is one of the most painful experiences a person can go through, but it also reveals who you are at your core. I found out that I'm much stronger than I thought, that I can face my fears and come out the other side. The love I once had for Lisa has turned into a hard lesson, one about self-respect, boundaries, and never letting anyone take advantage of you. So I move forward now, knowing that I've fought for my dignity, my kids, and my future. The pain will fade, but the lessons will stay with me forever. I still have scars, but they remind me that I survived, that I stood tall when everything was falling apart. And that's what truly matters. I've learned that sometimes you have to fight hard to protect what's rightfully yours. And in doing so, you discover the resilience and strength you never knew you had.